The psychology of a woman in love is complex, layered, and far deeper than most people realize, because when a woman truly loves, her mind doesn't just feel emotion. It starts protecting, evaluating, imagining, and sometimes even fighting itself all at once. Love activates her attachment system, her past experiences, her fears, and her hopes simultaneously, which is why her behavior can seem contradictory on the surface. One moment she is warm, nurturing, and deeply connected, and the next she may appear distant, quiet, or emotionally guarded, not because her feelings disappeared, but because they intensified. Psychologically. Love makes a woman more aware of vulnerability, and vulnerability triggers self-protection, so as her emotional bond deepens, her subconscious begins asking critical questions like, is this safe? Will I be valued? Will I lose myself here? And what happens if I get hurt? And these questions shape her actions more than her words ever will. When a woman falls in love, she doesn't just attach to who you are now. She attaches to the future she imagines with you, and that imagined future carries emotional weight, responsibility, and risk, which can lead her to slow down, test emotional consistency, or even pull back temporarily to regain balance. Neuroscience shows that love increases oxytocin and dopamine in her brain, heightening emotional sensitivity, meaning she feels joy more deeply, but also feels disappointment, neglect, or uncertainty more intensely, so small changes in tone, effort, or attention can feel much bigger to her internally than they appear externally. This is why women in love often become more observant, noticing patterns, shifts, and emotional cues, not to control, but to understand whether the bond is stable. Another key psychological factor is emotional investment. Once a woman invests emotionally, she becomes careful with her heart, and that carefulness can look like hesitation, silence, or emotional distance, especially if she senses inconsistency or emotional unavailability. Many women are also conditioned by past experiences to believe that loving too openly can lead to loss or abandonment, so when love feels real, the mind may instinctively apply brakes to avoid repeating old pain. Paradoxically, the deeper her love, the more she may value emotional boundaries, not because she loves less, but because she loves seriously. A woman in love often expresses care through actions rather than constant words, checking in, remembering details, supporting emotionally, and adjusting her behavior for the relationship. But if she feels emotionally unsafe, she may withdraw these actions without ever explaining why, hoping her absence will protect her heart or prompt clarity. Psychologically, women are more likely to internalize emotional conflict, meaning instead of confronting immediately, they reflect, analyze, and process internally, which can result in quiet phases that are misunderstood as disinterest. Love also activates a woman's sense of identity. She may question whether she is being seen, chosen, and emotionally prioritized. And if the answer feels uncertain, her subconscious response may be to detach slightly to preserve self-worth. Importantly, when a woman is truly in love, she doesn't play games for fun. Any distance, silence, or emotional shift usually comes from inner conflict rather than manipulation. Love makes her more emotionally honest with herself, which means she can no longer tolerate mixed signals, emotional neglect, or superficial connection the way she might have before. Trust is the foundation of her love psychology, and trust is built not through grand gestures, but through consistency, emotional presence, and safety over time. When those elements are present, a woman in love becomes deeply loyal, nurturing, and emotionally generous. But when they are missing, her mind will instinctively protect her heart by stepping back, even if her feelings remain strong. Understanding the psychology of a woman in love means understanding that her behavior is often a response to emotional security rather than emotional intensity, and that love for her is not just about attraction or passion, but about feeling safe enough to fully stay, fully open, and fully choose someone without losing herself in the process. Continuing deeper into the psychology of a woman in love, it's important to understand that once emotional attachment is formed, her mind shifts from curiosity to preservation, meaning she is no longer asking, "Do I like him?" but "Can this last without breaking me?" And this subtle shift changes everything about how she thinks, feels, and behaves. Love makes her emotionally future-oriented, so she begins unconsciously evaluating long-term compatibility, emotional maturity, communication style, and reliability, even during small everyday interactions. And if something feels unstable, her nervous system reacts before her logic does, often creating emotional distance as a way to self-soothe. Psychologically, many women experience what can be called emotional overstimulation in love, where feelings become so intense that the mind needs space to process them, and this space can look like silence, withdrawal, or reduced affection, even though internally the bond is growing stronger. Another key layer is emotional reciprocity. When a woman loves deeply, she needs to feel emotionally met, not just desired. And if she senses that her emotional energy is greater than what she is receiving, her mind may interpret this imbalance as a future risk, prompting her to pull back to restore equilibrium. Love also sharpens her intuition, making her highly sensitive to authenticity, tone, and emotional congruence, so words without matching actions can quietly erode her sense of safety, even if she never verbalizes it. Attachment styles play a powerful role here because women with anxious attachment may seek reassurance yet fear rejection, while those with avoidant tendencies may love deeply but retreat when intimacy feels overwhelming, creating behaviors that seem confusing unless you understand the internal fear driving them. Culturally and socially, many women are taught to be emotionally strong and self-sacrificing, which can lead them to suppress their needs in love until emotional pressure becomes too heavy, at which point withdrawal feels like the only way to breathe again. When a woman is in love, she often carries emotional responsibility not only for herself, but for the relationship as a whole, constantly monitoring its emotional health. And this invisible labor can exhaust her, leading her to step back not from lack of care, but from emotional fatigue. Another misunderstood aspect is that love makes a woman more aware of her worth. Contrary to the idea that love weakens her, true love activates her self-respect, and if she feels unchosen, taken for granted, or emotionally sidelined, her psychology pushes her toward distance as an act of self-preservation. Silence in a woman in love is rarely emptiness. It is usually processing, observing, and deciding, and during these moments, she is asking herself whether staying emotionally open will bring peace or pain. When emotional safety is restored through consistency, reassurance, and genuine presence, her heart naturally reopens because love, for her, thrives where security exists. Understanding this second layer of the psychology of a woman in love reveals that her actions are often shaped by the need to protect emotional well-being rather than to create confusion, and that the most powerful way to connect with her is not through pressure or pursuit, but through emotional steadiness, patience, and the ability to make her feel safe without asking her to abandon herself in the process. Moving into the third layer of the psychology of a woman in love, we begin to see how deeply her emotions are tied to meaning, because for her, love is not just about presence. It is about intention, and her mind constantly searches for signs that the connection has depth, direction, and purpose. When a woman loves, she becomes highly attuned to whether she is emotionally chosen, not just temporarily wanted, and this distinction shapes how safe she feels opening her heart further. Psychologically, love amplifies her need for clarity, so mixed signals, emotional inconsistency, or avoidance can create inner conflict that forces her to emotionally retreat even while her feelings remain strong. Another crucial aspect is that a woman in love often bonds through emotional storytelling, meaning she attaches not only to experiences, but to how those experiences made her feel. And if Emotional moments stop being acknowledged or valued, her sense of connection slowly weakens. Love also activates her caregiving instincts, and while she may give support, empathy, and understanding generously, she subconsciously watches to see if that care is reciprocated, because unbalanced. Emotional labor creates resentment long before it creates confrontation. When a woman feels emotionally unseen, her psychology doesn't immediately react with anger, it reacts with quiet withdrawal, because distance feels safer than repeatedly expressing needs that go unmet. Fear of abandonment also plays a subtle role, because even confident women can feel vulnerable in love, and to protect themselves from potential loss, they may reduce emotional exposure, convincing themselves they are fine, while slowly detaching internally. At this stage of love, a woman often reaches an emotional crossroads where she must choose between leaning in deeper or stepping back to protect herself. And this decision is heavily influenced by whether she feels emotionally respected, prioritized, and emotionally secure. Psychologically, women often equate consistency with commitment, so unpredictable behavior, broken patterns, or emotional unpredictability can quietly undermine her sense of safety, even if affection still exists. Love also heightens a woman's awareness of emotional boundaries, and she may begin enforcing them more clearly, not as a threat, but as a test of whether her emotional needs will be honored. Importantly, when a woman is truly in love, she is not trying to control the relationship. She is trying to understand whether the emotional environment is safe enough for her to fully stay. Her silence at this stage is often a form of emotional data collection, observing whether actions align with promises, whether effort is mutual, and whether emotional presence remains consistent over time. When her psychology receives reassurance through actions rather than words, her love deepens into loyalty and emotional openness. But when reassurance is absent, her mind gently prepares her heart for emotional self-protection. This third layer reveals that love for a woman is a constant dialogue between desire and dignity, connection and self-respect, and understanding this balance is key to understanding her behavior. When love feels both beautiful and risky at the same time,